guys, today we're going to be looking at equations and graphs. To start with, I wanted to review our equation that we should already know, y equals mx plus b, where y is a variable, m is the slope, x is a variable, and then b is the y-intercept. Now I have a table here that has some important information about slope and y-intercept. Let's look at the slope side first. This is Mr. Slope Guy, and he helps you know the different types of slope that we could have. If a graph is going up from left to right, if you notice his eyebrow is going up, this is a positive slope. If the graph is going down from left to right, that's going to be a negative slope, as shown by his eye. His mouth goes straight across. It's a flat, straight line, and that is a zero slope, so you can see the zero in his dimples. And then if a graph is going straight up and down, U, so the bottom part of his nose is a U, that's undefined, or, it's just, there's no slope to it. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses at the y-axis, and it's also when x is equal to 0. For slope, we do a thing called rise over run, and then I'll show y'all what that looks like on the next two examples. But let's start with this first one. It says that Brenda gave her son $16 to play arcade games. Each game costs $2 to play. So we need to identify which number is the slope and which number is the y-intercept. So Miss Brenda gave her son $16 to play arcade games. That's kind of where the son is starting at. And then each game costs $2 to play. So because I see this keyword each, that is our slope. And then $16 to play, that's where they're beginning their money at, so that is the y-intercept. Alright, let's graph it. So if they're starting at $16, that means at 0 games, the son still has $16. So here's 0, and again, this is our x-axis across the bottom, and then up and down vertically, that's the y-axis. So when x is equal to 0, when the number of games played is 0, they're starting out at $16. And then each game costs $2. So as the son plays more and more games, the money that he has goes down. So each game, so at one game he spent $2, and so now they have $14 left. At 2 games, they've now spent $4. Okay, and if you notice, each time we're going down by $2. So 10 minus 2 is 8 for the next game. The next game, 8 minus 2 is 6. Subtracting 2 each time. And this is what our graph would look like. And I'm going to draw a line connecting the points. And I'm noticing that the graph is going down from left to right, so this is a negative slope. Okay, let's try to write an equation. Y equals, so m is our slope. We said it's a negative slope. It's going down, and it's going down by $2 for each game. So negative 2x. And then they started with 16, so we'll have a plus 16 on the end. Alright, let's try another one. Now on this one, we're going to try to figure out what's the slope, what's the y-intercept, and then create an equation for it. Now on this one, we're going to use rise over run to help us. Rise over run, you need to find 2 points on a graph. And I'm going to choose this point and this point. We need to pick 2 points, and if you notice, they cross the grid lines very well. It's like at the corner of 2 lines. And we're going to do a thing called rise over run. Now this graph is not labeled with numbers, but we're just going to assume that each line is counting by ones. And so rise is how far up we have to go to get even with the next point, and then run is how far over. Okay, so the rise, we went up 1, 2 squares. And then the run, we went over 1, 2, 3. So our slope here is 2 over 3, and we're not going to change it to a decimal. We're just going to leave it like this. I'm also noticing that the graph is going upwards from left to right, so that is a positive slope. So our slope here is 2 over 3. The y-intercept is whenever x is equal to 0 or where the graph crosses the y-axis. This right here, this line is the y-axis. And we want to know where the graph crosses it. So if I go down, it hits right about here. Now, it's not exactly on a grid line very well, so we're going to estimate this the best that we can. So here's 0, and if you go down on the y-axis, these become negative numbers. So like this would be -1, this right here is -2. This point is kind of in between -1 and -2. Now halfway would be a little farther up, so just to estimate it, I'm going to call this -1, and it looks like it's about 2/3 of the way down. I'm going to just do -1 and 2/3. And so our equation for this would be y equals, slope is 2/3, x minus, because our y-intercept is -1 and 2/3. And the 2/3, again, I just estimated it. I kind of estimated like that would be 1/3, this would be 2/3. And then that means like our next point here, that would be 3/3 or -2. Alright, let's try one more. This time we are to graph with a slope of -1/2 and a y-intercept of -2. When we are graphing, we want to start with the y-intercept. That's going to tell us our very first point. So we're going to start with this. So we're starting at -2, so I'm going to count down 1, 2, and we're going to put a point. Remember, the y-intercept is wherever it crosses the y-axis, so it's on the y-axis at -2. And then we're going to do a slope of -1 over 2. And remember, this is rise over run. So -1 would mean to go down, so we're going to go down 1, and then over 1, 2, and then put a point there. And you go down 1, over 1, 2, and put another point. If you notice, they're going to make a straight line. Now I'm going to have us practice going the other way. Instead of going down, we're going to go up 1, and to continue making this a straight line, we're going to go over 1, 2 in the opposite direction. And if you notice, it's continuing to make a straight line here. Some people would try to go up 1 and then over 2 and put a point, but do you notice that's not on the same line, so that will not work. So let's practice one more time. Up 1, over 1, 2, and let's connect the points. Okay, a couple of things to check to make sure that we made the correct line is that our slope is negative. I see that it is going down from left to right, so our slope is a negative slope. And then we can check it again, down 1 over 2 each time. Down 1 over 1, 2. Down 1 over 1, 2. So that is working out each time. And then the y-intercept of -2. So if we check 1, 2, okay, I do have my point there at -2. Let's just practice writing an equation for this. Y equals m, remember m is our slope, so our slope is -1 over 2. So -1/2 x, and then our y-intercept is negative 2, so it'll be minus 2. Okay guys, we did some examples of graphing equations. We looked at a word problem and then graphed it and created an equation. We had to find the slope, the y-intercept, and make an equation of a graph, and then we even did one where we actually graphed the points. A couple of things to just remember for slope is Mr. Slope Guy. Positive is going up from left to right, just like you're reading a book from left to right. The words, we read a graph from left to right. So if it goes up, it's positive. If it goes down, it's negative. If it's a flat line, that's a zero slope. And then rise over run is very important. This will help you out when working with your graphs. And then y-intercepts where the graph crosses the y-axis, or you can think of it as when x is equal to 0. Thank you guys for watching.